happening. It is out in the open, in broad daylight, blatant abuse of power, targeting political opponents, targeting those who dare to dissent, and attacking our most fundamental constitutional rights and freedoms. So don't think this is about somebody else. Don't think this is about just people of one, political persuasion. This is about every one of us as Americans and protecting our rights and freedoms.
Yeah, absolutely. Tulsi Gabbard knows it all too well. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jesse.
Well, nobody's gotten to the bottom of 9/11, unfortunately, and they should have.
Amen. It was only a matter of time before Biden raided Trump's mansion. This is just another insurance policy to keep a Democrat in the White House. Chuck Schumer even warned Trump this was going to happen.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
Fresh off her little Pacific Rim skim job, Nancy didn't waste any time celebrating the news.
To have a visit like that, you need a warrant. To have a warrant, you need justification. And that says that no one is above the law, not even a president or a former president of the United States.
30 FBI agents with guns forced themselves into your home and removed 10 boxes of stuff, and Nancy calls that a visit? And does Nancy know the last warrants they had against Trump campaign were fraudulent? The evidence was doctored? Does she even know that or care? Instead, she says no one's above the law. Right. She means no Republican. Nancy's worth $300 million. She outperforms Warren Buffett. But whenever she opens up her mouth, it's like she has no idea how supply and demand work. So how is that possible? Well, it's called pillow talk. Her husband, Papa Paul, is so above the law, his ears are popping. He smashes his Porsche trunk into oncoming traffic, and the Napa County DA claims he's the victim. And then there's little Paulie P., the prince, sneaks into his mom's government jet, flies all over Asia, hitting up Taiwan, Malaysia, Japan, Singapore, Korea, while he's on the payroll of 2 lithium mining companies and heavily invested in electric car battery manufacturing. All the countries he hit up were ground zero for those supply chains. Not a coincidence. But the Fresh Prince of San Francisco is quite the checkered past. We told you last night that he's been tied up in at least 5 businesses that are under a federal probe. Will the FBI be taking boxes of portfolio returns back to Washington? Of course not. Nancy put her aide in charge of the SEC. It's the same reason why Hunter Biden will never be punished. Hunter recorded dozens of his crimes that show his father's compromised by the Chinese, but don't expect his 20 grand a month cash pad in Malibu to get raided. The FBI is on Hunter's side. Hillary had hundreds of classified documents at her house and bleached God knows how many out of existence. But the FBI said, nah, we would never prosecute that. Now Hillary's looking to cash in on the FBI's bias, trying to sell hats and T-shirts with "but her emails" all over them. There she is, fundraising. In Washington, D.C., justice isn't blind, it's blind with rage. And my next guest knows that well. After criticizing Crooked, Tulsi Gabbard was called a Russian asset. She knows what happens when you take on one of the 5 families. She's a former Democratic congresswoman and presidential candidate who joins us now. I'm just angry. I'm sad and I'm angry, and I feel like we're losing the country. How do you feel?
We are. Jesse, this is something that every American should be extremely concerned about, because this raid is just the latest serious escalation of this disturbing trend that we've seen of blatant abuse of power by those in power to not only protect their friends, but to target their political opponents, or frankly, anyone who dares to dissent or challenge or disagree or even question what this administration is doing. And there are a number of examples that we can point to, not only abuse of power within the Department of Justice, within the FBI, our law enforcement agencies, but also in the Department of Homeland Security and the IRS. You pointed to a few examples already. Look to the FBI investigation of Trump, for the Russia hoax that didn't turn out to be anything. You look at the IRS and Lois Lerner directly targeting conservative organizations under the Obama administration. You look at this administration's Department of Homeland Security's creation of a Ministry of Truth to go after us, everyday Americans across the country, to tell us, hey, here's what we say the truth is and is not, and what you are allowed to say and what you are not allowed to say. It's hard to imagine, given how blatant all this is, that this is happening in the United States of America. And that is what is so deeply concerning, is that we should not, as Americans, have to be thinking, hey, the IRS, the Biden administration just passed a bill with more big spending, giving the IRS $80 billion to go after entrepreneurs, everyday Americans who are working hard. And hey, maybe I should think about what I'm posting on Facebook. And if I criticize the administration, does that make me a target for an audit by this IRS that'll now have thousands more IRS agents to go after everyday Americans? These kinds of things should not be running through our minds in a democracy. These things are what happen in banana republics, where dictators have federal agencies, including law enforcement, to act as their own personal goon squads. And that's what I'm thinking of as I see this escalating, very dangerous trend in abuse of power by this administration.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if Trump had bleached all of these documents, that maybe then they would have given him a pass. Or maybe he could have just whispered things to Melania in bed and had her make trades to make billions of dollars in profits. Maybe that was the move not to get raided. Or, I mean, I don't know. What else could you do? Take wires from the Chinese communists, take wires from Russians, and maybe kick back some to your family members? You don't get raided for that. But if you have a letter from Barack Obama that he left to you and you have that at your house, they're going to come with guns and tell your lawyers to scram? Yeah. I mean, this is crazy, and the country sees it. How's the country going to react to this, Tulsi?
I think we're seeing some of the outrage coming from people across the country, regardless of their political persuasion. And I hope that those who aren't paying attention do take notice, because if you think this is just about Trump, you're wrong. This is about every single one of us as Americans, and this precedent that's being set of an abuse of power that's not even being hidden anymore. I think it maybe was happening behind the curtains, or maybe they were denying was happening. It is out in the open, in broad daylight, blatant abuse of power, targeting political opponents, targeting those who dare to dissent, and attacking our most fundamental constitutional rights and freedoms. So don't think this is about somebody else. Don't think this is about just people of one, political persuasion. This is about every one of us as Americans and protecting our rights and freedoms.
Yeah, absolutely. Tulsi Gabbard knows it all too well. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jesse.
Well, nobody's gotten to the bottom of 9/11, unfortunately, and they should have. Well, nobody's gotten to the bottom of 9/11, unfortunately, and they should have. Well, nobody's gotten to the bottom of 9/11, unfortunately, and they should have. Well, nobody's gotten to the bottom of 9/11, unfortunately, and they should have.